Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Shomler, and today I am talking with Ethan. Ethan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. I'm excited to talk to you.
Me too. I don't want to frame this as an interview necessarily. I'd like it to be a conversation. I do have way too many questions here that we will not get to by any means. I'm just over prepared. But I really admire your intellect and respect you, and so. Feel free to ask me questions too as we go. And I'm going to ask you hard questions, but questions that I am willing to answer myself. And so I hope we can get back and forth and have fun. And I say that at the top so that people listening aren't like, oh my God, he asked him that?
Right.
It's said immediately, we are going to go into that kind of stuff and have, I think, a deep, hopefully uncomfortable in the best way possible conversation.
Yeah.
Can we start here? You went to college, I think, multiple times to get multiple degrees.
Yes.
What's your college background? Where did you go to school and for what?
So I got my undergrad at Warner Pacific College in Portland. It's now Warner Pacific University. And there, people who know me might be surprised by this, but I actually got my degree in religion and Christian ministries. Which is wild for a lot of people who know me now or didn't know me then. But by the time I graduated, I realized inconveniently when I graduated that wasn't necessarily where I wanted to go career-wise. And so I went different directions, started exploring new things. And then I also got my master's from Lewis and Clark College. Yeah,
I went there briefly.
Yeah.
Beautiful campus. I love it there.
Great campus. Grad school campus is amazing, beautiful. So I got my graduate degree, my master's in marriage, couple, and family therapy. And then I also got some postgraduate education in trauma and trauma recovery, particularly for people who had childhood traumas and are now adults dealing with complex trauma.
Are you religious still?
Yeah.
I guess that implies you were before. I assume you were before.
Yes.
When you studied that in college.
Yes, I was raised that way. I was raised in the Christian tradition. I still do. I still go to church, but it's a very it's different from the church that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's not a conversation starter like it used to be for me as a kid, if that makes sense.
How was it before? You go to church and then you talk about your churches and stuff? Was that
right.
kind of...
Oh, yeah. Very, very evangelical. When you think of Christians, I was probably that person. Yeah, I think to answer your question, I think I am still religious, and I think there is a higher power of some sort.
Sure.
But I also approach that with a lot of humility. There's not a lot of certainty there.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be a person who pushes that on anyone else, which maybe people I grew up with would.
Yeah.
But that's not really my style. And I think because I did have a positive upbringing in a spiritual community, that's always going to be part of me. I'm always going to be thinking about what is beyond me in terms of higher power and meaning. So I would consider myself, people say spiritual but not religious, but I don't
the crystals, Ethan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, that's not
how you mean that.
Not necessarily how I mean that. I mean there is something beyond me, and I still look at that through some lens of the Christian tradition because it's what I grew up with. And so I think there's some comfort there, but also it helps me. Basically, I want to learn how to love people better.
Yeah.
And so that's as long as I am learning how to do that through the current lens. As long as I'm still doing that, I'm going to keep doing that.
I'm not religious.
Yeah.
And I've really fluctuated so much. Like at times I'm very proud of that. At times I don't know. I think I'm actually, I'm moving in 9 days. So Monday the 26th. And I think I'm going to go to church the night before I leave. Like there's a church downtown called Bridgetown.
Yeah.
And they just have the fucking best like rock concert, like worship ever. And I don't know why, but I know they don't have that in Hawaii where I'm going. And I'm like, I kind of want to go for the music. And I don't feel bad about that.
Sure.
And also I'm fascinated by that. I want to go, I want to take notes and be like, one more time, one last time, because I haven't been to that church in like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like take it in, be like, huh. And I it's almost like a science experiment for myself. I want to do it one last time and see if I get anything out of it. Because I'm curious, even though it's not for me, I view it like, why not? Like I one time I went to like a hippie commune in Hawaii. Like I'll try anything once, and it feels like that kind of experience. I've got a line that I think sounds good, but maybe it's kind of mean. I always say like I don't trust people that are absolutely certain in anything.
Right.
And it sounds cool, but who am I to break it all down? But I really like that you said that you're not certain. I take great peace in not knowing what's next and what's out there.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that at all? Like,
yeah. So when I was studying religion and Christian ministry, a book that really impacted me was called The Myth of Certainty. And it basically deconstructed for me the idea of certainty, especially when it comes to a religious tradition. And so for me now, it's not at all about certainty. It's about learning how to love people better. And so that's, I'm not even concerned with the idea of, did this actually happen?
Yeah.
Did these things historically happen? I don't care about that.
There is so much great, there's some stuff that I don't like in the Bible.
Sure.
And I also think it's kind of weird we tether to this book. Like, this book is the only thing. And it's all these rules. But aside from all that, there are some really, I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor. Like, there are really good lessons to be had if you're open to them. Even as a guy who, I sometimes say I hate religion. You get me in the right day, the right amount of alcohol in my system, I'll go off and say stuff that I'm probably not proud of. When it comes to certainty, it's like, who are you to say who created all this? Who are you to like say it's with finality? This is how it is. Like we both are tiny humans that are like ants in the scope of the universe. Why do you think people push religion? Like people that are, you said you grew up with people that are, they throw it in your face a little bit. Do you think they're well-intentioned?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are. I was. Yeah, I think a lot of people are. I think it's human nature. And even in non-religious people, like when we find something that connects with us, and particularly when there's a community of people around us that connect with those same values, it's natural to get a little tribal about that. That's human nature. From a psychological perspective, which I also bring that around knowledge-wise. From a psychological perspective, we are tribal people. We do long for some kind of certainty, which is why religion is so appealing, because it's like, here's the answer. And so whenever someone's pushing that on you, I recognize now that people are doing that because they've found some sort of value, and they're trying to get people on board with that.
Is it fair to say people push it partially because it's the thing that gave them peace and comfort?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of people that's the case. Yeah.
Why do you think there are people that, people die over religion? People cut off people from their family. People, I don't know how to make peace with this. I have so many friends who are gay or trans, and I don't fully understand all of that, but it's not my job to. It's my job to love them.
Yeah.
And I feel like religion, Christianity, whatever word you want to use there when it comes to God and all that stuff, so often misses that part of being loving and being welcoming. And in fact, it feels really ignorant and closed-minded to cut people off and not welcome them when you don't understand them. That's a big problem I have with the religion. How do you make peace with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't make peace with those kinds of behaviors. Those are really disturbing to me. I've seen As a therapist, I've seen a lot of harm done to youth because I worked with a lot of youth when I was a therapist, and I've seen a lot of harm done because of those actions. And it's a really complicated answer. I think it's going to differ from person to person as to why that is. I think part of it is tribalism. I've been told that this is not okay. And particularly when you attach like the concept of eternity to that, like your not just this life, but your forever, which is like a concept that doesn't make sense to me. But like when your forever eternity is tied to a certain way of believing, then they're going to be concerned about that.
Yeah.
And want you to believe what they believe because they like there. I think there is some degree of care motivation in those acts, even though they're pretty horrific.
I actually, in preparation for this, I asked someone a question last night, and that I'll ask you in a moment. But the topic led to the concept of heaven, and she was like, "What would you do if you went to heaven? Like, what would your heaven look like?" And I find the concept of heaven actually really hollow. Like, to me, if my best version of my life is I'm like Anthony Bourdain. I'm traveling the world with like a bunch of help, like cameras and people that are helping me, and I'm interviewing people about the dark, fucked up shit in the world and about their lives and about what's going on. And if you do that in heaven, there's actually no meaning to that. Like, when everyone has it easy and everything's perfect, it almost, to have a perfect existence takes away a lot of the meaning and joy from the world. So I don't really even understand how to quantify heaven. Like, I don't get it. Really.
Yeah.
So it's a two-part question. What do you think happens when we die? And then what do you hope happens? So what do you think happens when we die? Like, to you, in your bones, what do you believe happens when we pass on?
Yeah. Is I don't know an acceptable answer?
Definitely.
Because like
it's an honest answer.
Yeah. I am not afraid to say I have no idea. I have no idea what happens when we die because I don't know what happened before I was living, you know?
Yeah.
And so I have no idea. I am hopeful for the second part of that question. I'm hopeful that there is some kind of higher power or something beyond us that we are united with in some capacity. Whatever that looks like, I am hopeful and hope that happens, and that that everything we think about love now is just going to be even better. You know, when I hope that we're surrounded by perfect love, whatever that looks like. You know, I don't know, but I'm hopeful, and I hope that that's the case. But again, I have no idea.
I'd like to share my beliefs.
Yeah.
I think we turn into dust or like dirt, and I don't like that. And I think part of why I believe that is it protects myself from the pain and the belief of, because my brother died a couple years ago, and so I'd love to imagine he's out there. Like, the wishful thinking of me hopes we just wake up and we're actually in a matrix and we wake up and he actually figured it out before we did.
Right,
he's out there already waiting for me. Right? That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But I think the part of me that guards my heart says we die and there's nothing after this. And that gives me a great sense of urgency and a lot of, I think, fear maybe, but like a sense of like, I better like really get the most out of this time I have on earth.
Yeah.
Do you have any urgency like that? Do you feel any sense of like, hey, I'm guaranteed maybe 60, 70 years if I'm lucky, hopefully not in a car accident sooner. Like, you never know. And do you feel a sense of urgency with your life?
An urgency to like enjoy the life that we have.
Yeah, and to not waste my life.
Yeah.
Like a friend of mine's dad has hated his job for 40 years, and he did his job. And when he gives his kids advice, I go, I don't know that you should really live the values he has because he is miserable.
Yeah.
So like he might give you advice, but I don't know that I would take his advice because he's telling you how to do what he did, and what he did sounds awful. So I don't want to be that guy, and I feel a sense of urgency to get everything and maximize my time on Earth.
Yeah. I wouldn't describe my approach as urgent, but I am definitely, due to events that we'll probably talk about related to like me leaving my job as a therapist and the existential crisis that resulted from that, like I definitely have a strong desire to live this life meaningfully and to live it well, whatever that looks like. Like this, one of my mantras or things I say to myself often is, this moment is a gift, and I want to spend my time enjoying the gifts of these moments.
What does living well look like to you?
That's a really...
It's a hard one to answer, I realize.
Yeah, that's a really deep question. First of all, I think it's going to be different for each person. The more experience I gain as a person, the more I realize that every single human being's life is different. We're all living different stories. We're all different people, and that's fantastic. And like I wanted, because I was raised in an evangelical Christian tradition, which is all about spreading the way that you understand the Christian tradition. You got to spread that. Like it was almost grilled into me that there was a certain way of living, and there was a certain way of living life well. But I don't really believe that anymore. I think I think I have ethics and I have morals, and I want I want people to act in ethical and moral ways. However, I don't believe that living a life well is the same for anybody. For me right now, it's about just enjoying each and every moment and learning as much as possible. And yeah, that may change, but that's what it is right now, being in the moments.
Is it fair to say, because I think I am learning what it means for me to live well. I think I've got an idea, but I'm headed there, and I'm willing to adjust it as I go.
Yeah.
Do you think you're kind of in the process of figuring out what that means to you?
I think we're always in that process.
Yeah.
I think we're always in that process, even though we like to say we love hearing stories because, again, from a brain perspective, we like certainty. And so we like to know if we've arrived somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the best pieces of advice that I still try to remind myself of is a way to hack your brain in that way is to say, the only thing I'm certain of is that I'm uncertain of everything. And that's a great way of hacking your brain when you find yourself trying to stick to a certain way of being or living. Like the only thing we're certain of is that we're really uncertain.
Great.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Exactly. I forget what your original question was, but
so there are people out there who their definition of living well results in other people being hurt.
Yeah.
And that makes me really sad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a question here. I don't even know how to navigate those people. I just have to share that sucks, and I don't know how to make peace with that. And I'm curious if any response. I don't even know what question I'm asking. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So you're talking about people who their way of living negatively impacts the lives of another person.
Yeah, and that guy, and I wonder often, I try to psychoanalyze that guy. The guy who has to step on other people in order to fucking have a great life, and he's balling, he feels great, he drives the Lamborghini, whatever that looks like for that person.
Yeah.
But when do you think they actually feel happy? Like I wonder, like if stepping on other people and screwing other people over, and whether it's financially or whatever, do you think they're happy? I don't think I could be happy if what I was doing day to day resulted in just misery for other people.
Yeah. Obviously, I can't say what other people think, but I think there are a lot of people who live the way that they live because that's the way that they were told to, or that's the messages they've inherited, and maybe
their values.
Maybe some of them are happy, but maybe some of them aren't and haven't come to terms with that, or don't have a desire or the emotional space to come to terms with that, because it takes a lot of work to recognize I'm not happy. And so we'd rather do things that distract us from the fact that we're unhappy.
I want to talk about therapy very next.
Yeah.
But before we get there, when you were a therapist, my sense about people is that the majority of humans don't spend a lot of time asking themselves tough questions. Am I happy? What are my values? Like, I don't think a lot of time, like I literally have a piece of paper that's empty in front of me almost every morning, and I sit and I just let my brain go to the dark places it goes, and I write about it. And it really is good for me. It gets it out, and I spend time thinking like, am I enjoying this? Am I happy? Like, what's happening here? And I try to talk to myself. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I don't think a lot of people do that. Is that your experience?
What works about that for you? What do you like about that process?
I get to know myself. I get to check in with myself. I'm always asking, is what I'm doing working? Am I satisfied? I think when I really struggle with inactivity. I'm always going constantly. And
I never noticed that about you.
and so when I'm alone and my brain is things are quiet, I'm not distracted. It sucks. It's fucking horrible in my head, and I have to make sense of it. I have to get it on paper. For some reason, writing it helps. But I write it down and I look at it and I analyze it and try to make peace with where my head went. And it makes me feel better, actually.
Yeah.
But I ask myself tough questions a lot.
Yep.
And I interact with a lot of people, and I don't think they're asking themselves tough questions. Like the guy, my friend's dad, who fucking has hated his job for 40 years, I don't think he ever stopped and said, like, should I change what I'm doing? Like, this isn't working. I'm miserable. And he spent 40 years of his life unhappy. That's not a deal I'm willing to make.
Yeah. I wonder if there were other areas of his life that did make him happy.
It's not my sense. But I hopefully yes. Hopefully so.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a lot about the
sorry to be clear, who am I to judge that guy? I don't mean to be judgmental of him. I saw a window of his life and was like, I wouldn't want that.
Well, yeah. So. I think that it's really hard to engage in the way that you do, and other people do it in other ways too. Some people engage in mindfulness, which isn't, I'd argue that what you do every morning is a form of mindfulness. Just generating thoughtful awareness, non-judgmental awareness of whatever thoughts come your way. You're putting them out on paper. Some people just let them come and go. But it's really hard. It takes discipline to engage with your thoughts in that way and to be self-reflective. And we don't like discomfort naturally. We are designed as humans to seek safety and to seek protection and comfort. Because that's what gets us through and helps us survive, especially as hunter-gatherers. And so we are not going to naturally start investigating things in our life that are uncomfortable. We've created defenses. For some people, it's, alcoholism. For some people, it's looking at their phone all day long and doom scrolling. We do all kinds of things that don't allow us to ask difficult questions like that.
I think I should say when I started doing that, it was fucking horrible. Like when I would drive home from work, for example, and I would have to play music or have to play podcasts because the time sitting alone in my head was not pleasant, and I had to get over that. And I'm proud of that, and I didn't want to be a person who ran from that, and I had to get over that. Let's get uncomfortable. Like you were a therapist. You're not now. What are you doing now?
I work with a finance company. So I do a lot of background paperwork around processing loans, and have been doing that for a little over a year now after I transitioned out of my career as a therapist. And I'm not a practicing therapist anymore.
Oh man, there's so much to ask that follows up with that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Is it painful?
Not anymore.
Wow.
No. In fact, the way I feel now is much more free. And I love the experiences that I had, and I love that I was able to help people in the way that I did. I was very good at what I did. But it wasn't the right fit. I wasn't happy doing it. And I went through a really hard process of coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't happy doing that.
Yeah.
And even though I was doing really good work and there were no complaints on client ends, like I was good at what I did.
Yeah. There's no scandal. There's no
no,
horrible thing. There was
nothing.
no crazy fallout. You walked away.
I walked away.
Why?
Yeah. I'd like to say it's because I wasn't happy. I think that did lead to it. But it was because there was so much anxiety that it was causing me in my personal life, where by doing what I was doing, I was becoming so mentally unhealthy myself. And I became a shell of who I was. I could barely get through my days. There was just so much weight on me all the time. And I was not well. And, I think there was a point where, so the tipping point for me was when, this was like in the pandemic, I started going through what's called derealization. And that's where it's something that it's a natural coping mechanism for stress that our body goes into, our mind and body go into when we're under really intense, unmanageable stress. Wow. For some people, you think the more common term that a lot of people talk about is dissociation. Dissociation is that feeling of you've left your body and like you're disconnecting from whatever's going on. Derealization is the opposite of that. Derealization, which is what I went through, is where things are so stressful that the only way to cope is your mind starts saying none of this is real. Everything, the people around me, they're acting. Almost like the Truman Show, if you've ever seen that. It's like none of this.
What's an example of that? So you were feeling derealization.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What does that mean?
I look normal, but internally, it's a really uncomfortable place to be because nothing seems genuine. Like our interaction right here, right now, if I were derealizing, it would it would feel like you're an actor and you're just asking these questions for some alternative purpose. It's your mind's way of saying, this is too difficult to handle, so we've got to make up a story. We can't your mind can't make sense of the stress you're going through, so it's going to make up a story that makes sense.
Like, was it... I'm trying to imagine a scenario. You're at McDonald's, you're checking out. The lady's really nice to you. You're like, is she manipulating me? What does she want from me? Is she just pretending to be nice to me? Is that kind of the question? It's more
pretending. It's not about manipulation. At least it wasn't for me.
Well, why would they pretend, do you think? What was the... maybe I'm trying to make sense of something that isn't rational.
Yeah, it's not rational.
Yeah.
It's hard to make sense of it. It's just...
It sounds painful, though.
It is, and it's really uncomfortable and scary. And so that was the tipping point. That was like, when I started experiencing that, I was like, oh, I'm not in a good place anymore. Very clearly. And there were a lot of warning signs before that, like just me not feeling myself, feeling really heavy all the time and just not being in a good place. And my housemates at the time saw that. They saw me just go from Ethan, as you know me now, to just a shell. And so there were other warning signs, but when I started experiencing that, I was like, because I'm a trained therapist, I'm like, it's an interesting it's cognitively dissonant, like two things that like I'm able to recognize while I'm experiencing it that this is not a real thought.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, oh, my mind is thinking these things. That's not a healthy place to be. I'm not in a healthy spot. That was kind of the breaking point for me. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not living in a healthy spot right now. I'm under so much stress that I need to back away.
And the derealization was happening. Was it every or almost every interaction you were having with other people?
No, it kind of
came and went.
Yeah.
but the moments it was happening were just
It's uncomfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So my stepmom wrote a book called Falling Out of Love with Your Career, and she writes about she has like a couple problems. Sometimes it sounded like it was the company she was working for, and sometimes it was just the career field in general.
Yeah.
It sounds like it wasn't the company though. Like it wasn't your workplace environment wasn't the problem.
No, in fact, I had worked in a variety because one of the things that you know about me is I'm a very prudent person. It takes me a while to come to any big decision.
Yeah.
And so like I tried a variety of settings as a therapist. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try private practice. I'm going to try community mental health. I'm going to try all these different things, these different areas, different people, to see if it would work because I had a lot of money invested, frankly, into that career. Money, time, everything was invested into that. And what I realize now is in addition to money and time, I had a really unhealthy attachment to that work. Like it was all I was when it came to identity. And so to leave that was to enter into an existential crisis because if all you are is what you do, what happens when you don't do that anymore or can't do that anymore?
You're talking to me, man. Like I totally get it. You know, would you introduce, hey, I'm Ethan, I'm a therapist.
Yeah.
I'm Zach, I'm a YouTuber. That would happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I needed to get away from that to take myself away, to separate that from, it's what I do, not who I am.
Yeah.
So it's the field, it's the career field. Do you think, so was it because you were dealing with other people's, you were solving problems, I think, constantly for other people. Is that inaccurate?
Yeah. I wouldn't.
Or trying to, at least.
There's thousands of therapeutic approaches and ways people approach therapy, which is why I think everybody should get therapy. However, like it takes time. It's like dating. It takes time to find someone who's the right fit because every person, based on their life experience and the way that they feel connected to practicing the way of therapy, it may not resonate with you. And so I forget where I was going with that, but basically
what I was saying was, were you, because you were so emotionally invested in other people's problems, for lack of a better term, did it just not give you any emotional energy to deal with your own problems?
Yeah, I think in many ways, I mean, because again, that career field was the core of my identity. I didn't spend a lot of time really thinking about if that was the right fit for me, and if that was good for me long term, which it wasn't. But I didn't spend a lot of time, and I was getting therapy myself and doing some inward work and discussing the stresses of counseling, trying to get through that. But I do think I was spending a lot of time working for other people. Oh, I realize now that the tangent I was going on was as my approach as a therapist was I help people solve their problems themselves. I like to empower people. And so eventually they have to fire me because they're doing so well.
They have the tools to do it themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. So I help people solve their own problems. I'm not the problem solver, if that makes sense. Anyways.
It's only light bulb companies work that way.
Exactly. Sorry. Yeah, exactly.
Do you think, sorry, I say that because they make light bulbs that like they intentionally break down really fast, and they can make light bulbs that last forever. It's
exactly.
Like, why can't I have the forever light bulb?
Right. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know why my brain went there.
I know. That's a good one.
I'm an insane person.
Yeah. I love it.
Is there? Man, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I don't want to assume how you felt, but I would imagine when I try to put myself in your shoes, there's a feeling of shame, like. My job is to solve other people's shit, and I can't even solve my own. Was there a voice in your head saying that?
Actually, not at all.
Hell yeah, dude.
No.
Great.
Mainly
new thing to think about. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
No, I didn't feel any shame about that because I felt really honored that like I was able to. And there's a lot of therapists that don't have great personal lives.
Yeah.
And that doesn't take away from the fact that they're great therapists. And so I felt good about the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
I was helping people, but it was draining on me.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was that shame really that I didn't have my life together. And maybe that's because for a long time, and one of the reasons I stayed was because that was what I was told life was. You know, you go to college, you get your degree, you get your job, and then all of a sudden life's good, right? So I was living that. And so part of me was like, oh, this is what life is supposed to be, I guess. And it took me eventually, like with the derealizing, saying, I think people are wrong. I don't think I'm supposed to be feeling this way all the time. So, yeah.
It was expectations versus reality.
Yeah.
Do you think, would you ever go back? You think there's any world where, like, is there any potential future out there where you can figure out your own personal stuff? And is there a point where, like, I've got my stuff together enough to go back, or is that just, it's doing it puts you in a place that you can't do it?
I think if you had asked me a year ago, I would have said no way, because there was so much trauma around that exit for me. But now I'm much more open, much like my religious perspectives. It's like, who knows? Maybe that will happen.
Why close the door?
Yeah, I'm not closing that door, because, like I said, I am good at that work, and so if I'm ever at a place where I choose to do that again, where it's not the core of who I am, but it's just like it's something I want to do for people, it's a service I want to offer. Yeah, I would do it. It would probably be in a private practice where I have control over, like, who I'm seeing and the kinds of people I'm working with, because, like, I would want to be in control of that process for me and for my own, like, I could set my schedule.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would ever be a full-time source of income, but it might be something
Could
like,
eventually.
Yeah.
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 I don't know how it works. You need a license, I assume,
You do.
to work, right?
Yes.
Is that you need a degree and a license? Is that kind of?
Yeah. So the way it works is you get your degree, and the final year of your degree program, it's usually a 3-year program, might be more or less depending on the school you go to. For me, it was 3 years, and that last year is some classes, but mostly internship, where you're working. You're actually in a. For me, I was in 2 different settings. I was in the Lewis and Clark Community Counseling Center, where I was actually being monitored by fellow students as well as a practicing licensed therapist and supervisor. Like, they actually, and the clients know this, we're not doing this without their permission, but there's cameras, and people are behind.
They're putting on videos on YouTube,
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Who needs personal privacy?
Not at all. I want to be very clear. Not at all. No, it is a very secure system.
Yeah.
But it's basically people are watching me as I'm doing it, and then I'll go back after that session and get feedback. So it's a really engaging training process. So that's part of it. And then I'm also, in my case, I was in a community mental health setting where I was, again, under a supervisor, though not recorded, working with kids and families and adults. So you do that for a year, and then, licensed therapists have to get thousands of supervised hours before you can actually...
And is there continuous, like, I have an HVAC license, and it'll never expire. But most licenses, I think there's a word for it, I can't remember, but you have to continually...
Continuing ed.
Continuing education. I assume therapy has that too, right?
Yes, there are requirements for continuing education. At the time that I left, I was still practicing under the license of a supervisor, so I wasn't fully licensed yet. But I was fairly independent in what I was doing. I would consult with my supervisor once a week or so on some clients. But yeah, there is, once you obtain that license, there is continuing education.
Did you find the work meaningful?
I think so. Yeah. I found like what I loved about the therapy process was seeing the light bulb moments, going back to the light bulb analogy, seeing the light bulb go off in people where they recognize aspects of themselves, or in the case when I'm working with families, they see how their interactions with each other were creating the problem with the child. Like just those light bulb moments where people are like, aha, I get it. And they start to make changes. I loved doing that. And there's nothing more meaningful than seeing someone change their life before your eyes. Like that is a really sacred process for people to allow me into.
Yeah.
It's incredibly meaningful.
I'm so curious. How do you put this? So I had a job that felt like on paper was the best job in the world.
Yeah.
And I love Anthony Bourdain, who like seemed like had the coolest job ever. Anthony Bourdain killed himself and clearly was unhappy.
Yeah.
I had a job talking about sports, working for myself. Like my job is often to watch sports. Like that. That's the fucking dream. And I was deeply unhappy. I didn't like my job. And I think I've since kind of done a lot of work and figured out a lot of what was going on was me, not my job. But I still don't think I loved it. I think I really liked it, and that there were great moments of joy and there were great moments of frustration. Since then, I've been installing air conditioning units.
Yeah.
Like, you think I love my job?
Right.
I'm fucking in crawl spaces all day. But yet I probably enjoy it about as much as I enjoyed making content, which is like an insane thought. But there's a similar balance of pain to pleasure. Do you think anybody truly loves their job all the time? I don't think so, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
I don't think so. I think the people that say they do are probably lying to themselves about the parts that they don't enjoy, so they can say they love all of it.
They're in denial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. I think that, every single job has the ups and downs. Even the job that I work now, where similar to you installing air conditioning units, like I'm processing paperwork.
Woo!
Love it.
So enthralling.
Isn't that amazing, right? Like, but I get to work from home, and I get to, outside of that, there's no emotional baggage. There's there's pros to each and everything, but there's also some downsides. I think, I don't think anybody's 100% in love with every aspect of what they do for a living.
Yeah. I think we all have to do something for money, something to pay our bills.
Yeah.
And my approach is, because when you're a YouTuber, right, I expected to love it all the time. And when I didn't know how to make peace with that. I felt really weird about that.
Yeah.
And now with perspective, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to love my job all the time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I got to pick a job that gives me the conditions I like and the lifestyle I like. And accepting that I'm not going to like all of it has been growth for me. So I don't know. It's been reading my mom's book, talking to you. It's been really good for me, this process.
Yeah.
What about your job now? Like, does your job now, processing paperwork in the finance world, does it give you the lifestyle and meet the needs you want when you're not working?
I would say it doesn't meet my needs financially, but emotionally, 100%. Like, I went from a job where 100% of my emotional energy was tied to the job to now where none of my emotional energy is tied to the job. And so I get to clock off at the end of the day and then go do anything else that I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's created some really profound freedoms in my life that I am in love with. Like, it's going to take a lot of change for a lot of pros for me to leave my current job, because it just offers me so much outside of work.
Yeah.
Which is something I didn't have before. Like, work was my identity and now it's not. And that's really liberating, to not have who I am tied to what I do. We're human beings, we're not human doings.
Yeah. Do you think you could ever do therapy with that same approach?
I think, I think I think I probably could. There's like in my voice, I'm noticing some hesitancy still.
Yeah.
So like, I think,
And I don't have skin in the game at all either way, by the way. I'm just curious.
No, the hesitancy that I'm feeling in my voice and just as I talk about that is that I'm not quite ready for that. But I think if I were in a place where I'm ready to do that on my own terms, I think I could do it. And I think you have to be emotionally invested to be a therapist, but I could do it in a healthier way with more boundaries.
I think you know this, but I will never. I think you know what I'm about to say in your heart, but I just want to say it out loud. Like, if you never go back to therapy and you got a degree and you did all this time and all this energy and all this fucking money and you never use it, that's okay. Like, that's a life. You want to live a life well lived.
Yeah.
And if it was bad for you, like, that's, to me, as your friend, totally acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never give you shit for that.
Yeah, and I kind of want to rephrase a little bit of what you say for anyone else who is out there and listening, going through any career transition. Like, it's one of the things that I've realized is it's really hard to recognize how your skills, your professional skills, go into the other areas of your life. You know, it's really hard to recognize that. The professional skills that I have learned are in this conversation. They are in my conversation and my support with friends. Like, it's not a loss scenario.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a thing you can build off of.
Yes, and like every endeavor that I go on, even if it's outside of like a career, it's going to incorporate the things that I've learned and my professional knowledge. Like, I can't separate that, you know?
Yeah. It's made you the person you are today.
Yeah.
And I think you like the person you are today.
I do. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I really do. Yeah. I like who I am. I like the place I'm at.
Have you ever heard the phrase, there's not losses, only lessons?
I haven't heard that, but I like that.
It sounds like something Ted Lasso would say. I don't know if he said that or not, but like,
he would say that.
He definitely would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you go through something really tough, you can view it as a failure or a loss, or you can view it as an opportunity to learn and grow. And sports are like the ultimate analogy for everything. But like, when you lose a football game, fuck, we lost. It sucks. We got beat. Oh, but how can we learn from that loss? And what did we do wrong that we can take in the next game and do better?
Yeah.
Life is exactly like that.
Absolutely.
Everything, if you want to use it and build off of it, you can.
Yep. Yeah. In anything we do, like, I can't remember who said this to me, but like, we like, let's say you're going from point A to point B. Well, if point B ends, you're not going back to point A. You still have the journey from point A to point B with you. Yeah. And so you might move on from point B to then point C and D and E, but you're like, that journey is still with you. It's still part of you, and it's going to be incorporated in the rest of the journey.
I thought of this and I want to say it before I forget it because I think it's interesting and funny. And I would encourage you to look it up later. Yeah. There's this guy, he plays for the Denver Nuggets. His name is Nikola Jokic, and he's like their star. He's their best player. He treats playing in the NBA like it's 9 to 5. He couldn't give less of a fuck. Like, he doesn't care. Like, they won the championship the other day, and he was like, yeah, it's cool. Like, he's like, we have a parade on Thursday. Fuck, I want to go home. Like, I don't want to. Like, it's a job to him. And
I love that.
And it's like so honest, and I love
That's
it. It's
awesome.
Like, he doesn't pretend that it's some spectacle thing. Like, he's like, no, dude, I want to go home to my horses. Like, I really don't want to do media. I don't want to do this shit.
Yes.
And it's like, I've never felt more like seen by a human or like related to a person more than the guy in the fucking NBA who wins a championship and just wants to go home. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
So like anyone that just look it up, it's like so like there's like a video of him,
man.
like 5 minutes of him after the finals, like Nikola Jokic not caring about winning the finals. Like look that up or something,
Oh,
and
man.
it's just so funny. It's like, oh
Wow.
my god, this guy's great.
Yeah. I mean, he gets it. Like,
yeah. It's a job.
It's a job, and it's not all that you are.
Yeah. That's wow. I never thought about it that way, but that's a healthy guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
A guy who doesn't get all his sense of purpose and meaning from the way he makes a paycheck.
Yeah. I read the book Atomic Habits and by James Clear, and the analogy he uses, like, he's obviously talking about habit formation and what goes into that. But when it comes to different identity points, you should treat it like almost a stock portfolio. Your identity should be in so many different, like you should
diversify.
You should diversify it. So like if one thing like therapy goes away, well, you've got like 2, 3, 4 other things that are part of who you are that continue to be who you are. And that's what I love about where I'm at right now is like if my current job changes, I could care less. Or like, you know, if people follow me on Instagram, I'm a baker and people will see like my bread. If I stop baking, there's other parts of my life that are carrying me, and I'm one of my life values is curiosity, and so like I'm always learning new things and exploring new things and diversifying those identity points so I'm not tied to one thing anymore, and that's so freeing.
I knew we had a lot in common. Like but I feel a sense of kinship with where we both had jobs that felt like everything to us. That's who we were.
Yeah.
What we did. It's who we were. It's our identity.
Yeah.
I know for me, like I had to, dude, I don't want to be the HVAC guy. Like whether I do that or not, like that's not my identity. I'm not Zach who installs air conditioning units.
Yeah. And
so to have that experience and do a job that wasn't my identity has been so healing for me.
Yeah.
And how do you introduce yourself now? Like I know that I don't really introduce myself. I'm not a YouTuber anymore, really. Like I don't introduce myself that way. Mm-hmm. Are you just Ethan? Am I just Zach? Like what?
Yeah.
Can I say? I also like had to learn how to. I love who I am, even as HVAC guy.
Yeah.
Even as the guy that's my job. Yeah. And I had to learn how to love myself without the other thing. Yeah. And that's been great too.
Yeah. Tell me, before I answer that question, tell me about. I'm curious about that journey for you. About like, because every person's journey is different. I'm very curious about how that transition happened for you of like learning to love Zach, the HVAC guy.
Yeah. So they told me it would take a year to get. I've never had a normal job. I've never tried to live in the real world. I dropped out of college. Like I hated college, and I didn't want to be a traditional corporate world. And my friends in the corporate world seemed miserable. And I was like, I'll be a YouTuber, and that's great. But I always felt trapped with YouTube, whether I was or not. I was like, man, if I don't do YouTube to make money, I'm totally fucked. I have no other way to sustain myself.
Yeah.
And so when I started HVAC, they said, look, it's going to take you 6 months to a year to get your license. Now the test is coming up in about a month and a half because there's like a quarterly test you can take, and we got a couple guys taking it. You might as well take it just to get your eyes on it, get in front of you. And I said, I'm going to pass that test. And they said, no offense, but no fucking way you're not.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I am. And I studied my ass off.
Right.
And I learned, I just dove everything headfirst into HVAC.
Yeah.
And I learned everything I could, and I got my license. And I was like, damn, okay, for the first time in my life, I feel smart. I feel confident. I am drilling holes into houses. I'm in crawl spaces. I'm doing stuff. I'm welding metal together. Like I'm doing shit I never, ever could have fathomed doing 2 months ago. And it gave me confidence, and it gave me peace, and it made me go, okay, I don't need to be a HVAC guy forever, but I'm definitely can make money without a degree.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely smart enough, and I think smart is probably more confidence and patience.
Oh, that's great.
But I'm confident, and I'm patient enough to learn anything, and I can. Yeah. I'm very confident I can learn anything if I really put my mind to it. If I can learn the ins and outs of refrigerant and this nonsense I don't even care about. Like in college, I always said, I can't learn something I don't care about. And I've learned through this experience, that's just not true. I can learn whatever I really put my mind to.
Yeah.
And I think most people probably can't. We've all met the guy who is a little too slow, and he probably can't. But I think the majority, 95% of us, maybe it's more, if we really have the patience and confidence, we can learn probably anything.
Yeah. You just have to find that inner motivation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, like you found that motivation in that. I think you're a really competitive guy, which is great. So you're like, when someone tells you you can't do this, you're like, excuse me, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's great. That works for you. And I love that. I think, my journey, I had to find a lot more. I had to find some internal motivation as well.
Yeah.
Not to say you didn't, but I do think you're a competitive guy.
Yeah, definitely. But I think I just had to pick a story to tell myself.
Yeah.
I think I had to find a reason, find an angle, and if you tell yourself the story of why you're doing it, you can. So for me, it was a challenge. That was the why, and I wanted to get it as quick as I could because as soon as I got my license, I make more money. Right? It was very linear. But you find a reason why you're doing it and pick a story and an angle and go with it.
Yeah. And what I would say, this is my perspective, I think that, we live in an influencer world where we look at other people's stories and we want to live those stories. And if that motivates you, great. But I think a lot of people, myself included, need to find a story that isn't someone else's to motivate them.
Yeah.
Like that's too shallow. That was too shallow for me. Whenever I stick to something, and I think we have very similar work ethics. Like when I stick to something, I do not stop. I continue to learn it. I dive deep into it. But I do it from a place of like, I have to find it internally. I have to find this inner motivation somewhere, and I have to do this internal seeking. I can't live like someone else does. I can't like live someone else's story, if that makes sense. Or that can't be the story that I find.
What does that mean to you, living someone else's story or finding, inspiration in someone else's story?
Yeah, I think of like seeing someone on Instagram who's lost a ton of weight and share like their whole brand is how they did it, and like people will follow that and say, okay, now I'm going to do that. That person,
their formula.
Yes, their formula. I'm just going to follow that, and it's going to work for me. I try to find something that's more organic and feels good to me.
Yeah, that's why I do the blank piece of paper thing, right?
Yeah.
Is you can't live your life trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Or trying to be with someone else's expectations put on you, or even your own expectations. I mean, I've lived so much of my life doing things because I should, or because sometimes I think I did stuff because it would have sounded cool when I told other people about it. Straight up. Like, oh, that's a good story. I should do that. Like, do I want to do it?
Yeah.
I never even stopped. I was so worried about what other people thought, I never even stopped to consider what I want to do.
Yeah. Whenever I find myself trying to be someone else, I'm always disappointed in the end. That's been my experience.
When have you done that? What's an example of that?
I mean, I've done it a lot of times, like, and I'm not the only person that has done this, just like with fad diets and things like that. Like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be keto. I'm going to do the Whole30. I'm going to do all these things. Like, those are someone else's story. Someone lived that and it worked for them, which is great. But at the end of the day, the reason a lot of people fall off of those changes is because it's not them. It's an inauthentic. You're trying to live someone else's story. You have to make those changes internally in order to, like, you have to find the thing that works for you a lot of the time.
Do you think the keto diet, whatever that is, those little moments, those are people finding bits of identity, like finding, I'm Ethan and I do keto. I'm
Totally.
I'm a fisherman. I'm whatever the fuck it is, right? Like we are inherently tribal, like you said earlier, and we're all searching for bits of belonging and bits of we're a part of this, or we do this, or we group together because you do, I do that too. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's absolutely part of identity.
What do you say to someone who, or not what do you say, but like, I can think of someone in my life who is really struggling, I think, with identity, and they're not sure who they are, who they want to be, and I think the baseline is they're not happy. Is there any, like, I would say probably sit down and just listen to your thoughts and see where they go. and I don't know. I don't want to put you responsible on the hook for like all this.
Yeah.
Please. But is there anything you can say to someone who like is really struggling to figure out who they are?
Yeah. I would. I think there are a couple things. I think a mindfulness practice of like noticing how things. I want to preface what I'm about to say with having a mindfulness practice while doing what I'm about to say is important. You need to notice how things feel for you, how things are going, and be able to notice that within yourself.
Let's define what is mindfulness.
Mindfulness is just intentional awareness in my mind.
Yeah.
Like that's how I define it. Being intentionally aware of the thoughts and the feelings that are coming by, paying attention to those. And then you can add all kinds of things to that, like being non-judgmental with it. But the core of it for me is just fostering a posture of noticing what you're thinking and feeling. So that I would say when it comes to finding identity, maybe start posing things as experiments. Like, I'm going to try this. That, like, I became a great baker. Literally, it's funny, I just talked about, like, avoiding Instagram influencers, but I saw someone going through something, and I was like, I wasn't trying to be that person, but I got really curious. I was like, they seem to be having fun with that. I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
And if that didn't feel good to me, that's where the mindfulness comes in, then you stop it. Like,
you didn't jump in and say, I'm Ethan the bread guy.
No.
You're like, I'm going to try making bread.
Yeah, and I'm going to see what happens. And now I've gotten to a place where I've moved beyond what that person was doing into my own thing. But I think just starting to experiment, but also there's part of me that's saying, the therapist in me is just like, I really empathize with people who struggle to have a sense of who they are. And I would just encourage people to get reflection from the people around them. If you have good friends, some people don't have those. If you don't, find a therapist who can do that reflection. But like, the people around you can be really helpful at reflecting what they notice about you.
Yeah, I wish for everybody peace about who they are. I have been on kind of a journey discovering who I am and not only discovering that, but then accepting that and saying like, hey, I like this version of me, and that's okay. I might be a little different. I might be a little weird, but like I like that about myself, and I'm comfortable with that. Can we talk about bread like that?
Sure.
Your bread
I'll
looks
talk about it all the time.
Fucking amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
It's one of the more interesting parts of you, I think. Like, how do I say? I don't mean that in a judgmental way. Like
I take that as a compliment.
I think it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
I can't bake amazing sourdough bread.
Yeah.
You can.
I can.
And, and hell yeah. And it looks amazing. And I don't even know how you, I mean, I do. I'm sure you researched it and figured it out, but I just really admire and want to acknowledge the obvious effort that took.
Yes.
And the journey you must have been on to get really good at baking bread. That's so cool.
Yeah. It literally started with a book that an influencer I followed on Instagram was doing. And she was documenting her journey going through this bread book. And I was like, that looks really interesting. I kind of want to just check it out.
Yeah.
And
fun.
I went through the whole book. I just went through the whole book, baking everything in the book. And then I was like, okay, this is really fun. And then I just started doing my own thing. So now, like, I have my own recipes and, like, I can do my own thing when it comes to sourdough bread. But it took a touching point, for sure.
Why was it fun?
So for me, what I find really life-giving about the bread baking process, baking sweets is an entirely different arena, but the bread baking process there is a lot of waiting, and there's a lot of things that are outside of your control, which is really healthy for me. You can control a lot of things. You can control time. You can control, that's how long you proof something, let it rise. You can control temperature in a lot of cases. Like if you put it in your oven, not to bake, but sometimes you can control the environment of the oven and the temperature to allow it to prove more reliably. And you can control like the amount of ingredients that you put it in. But at the end of the day, bread is a living organism. Like yeast is bacteria that's just gonna do its own thing. And what I found really life-giving about that process was I let go of results. Like I just enjoyed the process of baking the bread, and I let go of any sort of like, I'm making a sourdough loaf. Oh, I burned that loaf. Okay, I'm not making a sourdough loaf anymore, but I enjoyed the process.
Yeah.
Or I bake a loaf and it's underproofed, so now it looks more like a pancake and it's a dense pancake. Well, it turns out my housemates love dense bread, so it worked out. But the point is, like, I can strive for something and enjoy the process of creation, but it's not about the product. It's about the process.
That's really cool. I mean, that's I think what I like about content.
Yeah.
Is that I love, like, there's a magical moment at my desk where I'm like going through my notes and I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. And how am I going to talk about that? Is there anything I'm forgetting? And like that moment of like creating something.
Yeah. Do you ever have moments when you're creating in the psychology world, we call it flow. You get into a state of flow. It's where like time just sort of melts away and you're just in it, doing it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I still have those moments. Like I remember when I worked at a car wash in high school and early college. And at the time I was also making content like insane amounts, like constantly. And I would get in a flow state. Well, I have a line of like 50 cars. And I remember being so heartbroken. Like I can't stop right now and just get on my notebook and journal this all that and write it all out. And that's my favorite thing about being self-employed and just working it from your desk is when that hits, you can anytime just stop what you're doing and focus on it. Like let it play out for a couple hours even.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm aiming to get back to. I really miss like that, being able to have that moment whenever it comes. And I can kind of trigger it sometimes, but often it's you're watching Ted Lasso and you feel inspired, or you feel this moment of like. I also think that when you work in a creative field, like if you made bread for a living, sometimes you have to fulfill orders and you have to make it because you need to make money, or it's time to do it. And you have to figure out how to balance the trigger when you need to versus when you want to.
Yeah.
And when you feel inspired. And you don't always feel inspired when your job is to make stuff.
Right.
And that was a process that was really hard for me to accept, is that I'm not always going to be inspired. And the moments when I am are great, and I need to accept and be okay with the moments where I just it's time to fire off and get going. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does.
It was that's something I needed to learn, because I never ever wanted to install an air conditioning unit. Like there was never a moment where I was inspired or feeling it. Yeah. And so learning how to trigger that and turn it on and just it's time to work has been so great for me. Yeah. I don't know. What's your favorite bread recipe?
So
or what type of bread? Like what does the final product look like?
So I really enjoy making sourdough loaves because it's a long multi-day process. However, I think one of my favorite things, because it's a crowd pleaser, is my focaccia. And honestly, it's probably the easiest bread recipe ever. You could probably do it, Zach. I'm not even kidding you. You could probably make a really good focaccia loaf, because you use a certain amount of water, flour, and yeast. You let that rise for about 12 hours, then you throw it in the oven. And you put it in a pan and you throw it in the oven. You douse it in oil, throw some salt, whatever toppings you want on it, and it always comes out amazing, and it's a crowd pleaser.
Can I say, I worked at a restaurant in Camas called The Hammond. Within a year ago, when I first moved back from Hawaii, that's the job I did. I was a server at the Hammond,
Yeah.
and they made the best fucking focaccia bread ever. And we would dip it in their house butter or their house buttermilk ranch. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I've had focaccia and it is incredible.
Yes. Yeah. It's a crowd pleaser. People love it. I mean, it's salt, fat, and love. That's the ingredient.
Yeah. So that's
like,
what other people
passion.
like. What about you? Which one do you like most?
I think I enjoy the most. I've been working on this rye recipe. Rye is a really interesting flour because it doesn't have a lot of gluten, so it doesn't rise a lot. It often turns out really dense loaves. And so I've been working on something that like adds a combination of white flour with rye flour, because the white flour that we think of like has a lot of protein content, which allows gluten to form.
Yeah.
And so it creates those really big, if you see those like ears on the loaves of sourdough that just look really crisp and jagged edges and delicious. It's allowed to rise that much because there's a lot of gluten formation in that. So I've been working on a loaf, and I think I've settled on a recipe I like, but it adds a combination of rye flour with that white flour that allows it to still rise a good amount.
Sure.
But also offers some nice flavor of rye, because that's why a lot of people use it. It's got really good earthy flavor. So yeah, I think that's been my favorite recently.
So you have, sounds like the courage to experiment and try new things when it comes to baking.
Oh yeah. It's all about, I mean, you gotta start somewhere. I wouldn't recommend anybody just jumping in and throwing in like, oh, I'll do like this amount of yeast and flour and water. You start with a recipe, but then you can start, once you get familiar with it and know how to do it, then you can start tinkering with an existing recipe and start
like I wouldn't
messing
even
around.
know what you could tinker with.
Yeah.
So I would need to cook or bake X amount of loaves to understand how it all works and even know what things are manipulatable.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
That's I don't know, man. It's so I just really again admire the creativity. You're the only person I know, at least it shares publicly, that they just bake bread. And I have a deep love of sourdough bread. It makes the best sandwiches. It makes the best fucking toast.
Oh.
It doesn't hurt my stomach that way. Like I don't know what
Good
about
to know.
sourdough is just like a really like amazing bread, and it tastes good with everything and with just butter or even no butter. So I work on job sites, and there are days where I'm on my way to Safeway or I'm on my way to work, and I forgot to make lunch. I just stop at Safeway and I grab a loaf of sourdough bread, and I'll eat like half a loaf because it doesn't spoil. It's just easy to have in your truck while you're working. Like I deeply love sourdough, and it's so cool that you do that. Before I want to talk about I think some painful stuff in a second, but
Okay.
I want it documented because I also want to remember, and I remember being amazing. There's a thing you did with our coffee last time I was here.
Oh yeah.
that, I think took the acid out of it.
Oh yeah.
What was that? What process happened?
Well, I'm not.
No, we both love gas station coffee. Yeah, we're both very. We're not coffee snobs.
I'm not a coffee snob, and so I want to preface this with like, this is just my experience, and I could be totally wrong. They're like coffee aficionados who are listening.
Stand down.
Yeah, stand down. But I used the Chemex, the Chemex brewer, and what I've been told is that the paper filter, it's a little bit thicker than a typical coffee filter.
Yeah.
And that is what kind of filters out some of the acidity. And so it's like easier on the stomach. That's what I've found for me. So yeah, that's what I've been told is how it works. I could be totally wrong. But I really enjoy the Chemex process also because it's a mindfulness, it's an engaging process too. It's like you're weighing things out,
it's involved,
pouring at a rate. Yeah. And it's very involved, and Yeah.
Yeah, a Keurig is, there's no satisfaction. You put a thing in, you
Press
hit a
a
button,
button.
and you're done.
Yeah.
And there is no, you're not really making it. You're
Yeah.
hitting a button.
You are. Yeah.
And to be clear, Chemex, I don't know what coffee snobs would say either, but I struggle with acid reflux. And when I had coffee at your house 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I was like, oh my gosh, my mouth doesn't hurt, my stomach doesn't hurt. It was a different type of coffee. It just hit differently, and it was easier on my body to digest and process.
And some might say that also has to do with coffee quality.
Sure.
Because, like, yeah, if you buy better beans, you're obviously going to have a different experience than, like, what I also love, which is diner coffee. Like, see, that's the thing. I'm not a coffee snob because, like, I also love diner coffee. Like, I'll just, like, some days that's just what I want.
You ever read the Jack Reacher books?
No.
You should. He's like a guy who travels the country, and he's kind of a superhero of types. Like, he's a former military cop, and he's homeless, and he just rides up buses around different parts of the country and solves, like, crime, basically, and loves gas station coffee and loves diner coffee. And I described it horribly, but I mean, that is his character. Like, he's a homeless man who just runs into trouble, and he's 6'5" and can beat anybody up and deals with it.
Nice.
And,
likes his diner coffee.
Yeah, like it's just a fun character. I don't know. Are you ready for pain?
Sure, let's dive in.
Pain. Fuck it. Your dog died.
Yeah.
Within the last, I don't know how many months, 6 months, I think. Coco. I don't even know where to start. I just know that there's something meaningful there. And obviously it was painful. Obviously it was hard. How are you doing with that?
I want to start with encouraging, like, showing people what mindfulness looks like for me, because right now I'm noticing, like, when you mentioned Coco and her death, like, my stomach got really tight. I can feel something behind my eyes. Not quite tears yet. We'll see what happens.
I didn't ask in a kind way. I kind of just threw us off a cliff. I wasn't very kind about it. I'm sorry.
So that's what I'm noticing. I'm definitely affected by that. Yeah. What was the question?
How are you doing?
I think each day is a different journey. I think that's the nature of grief, is like every day is going to be different. And people often talk about like grief as in stages, but that's one of the biggest myths. The person who talked about the 5 stages of grief and came up with that concept, she's even said, like, it's been taken out of context. Like, it was written for a specific purpose, and now it's more like cyclical, one day, or a zigzag even. Like, grief is different for everybody. So some days I can't do anything but cry. I have a shrine in my house with all her stuff on it, and I'm still waiting. I have someone that I commissioned to paint a portrait of her, an artist up in Canada, who a friend recommended to me, and I really connected with her work when I saw it, and I was like, you're going to capture her personality well. So I'm still waiting on that to complete the whole dedication thing. But yeah, I think how I'm doing now is, like, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Like, Coco for me was just an angel, Coco got me through that career transition. She got me through derealization. She got me through other moments where I was going through a lot of trauma, and there was a deep and profound bond that I felt with her. And for people who either aren't pet people or just haven't had one themselves, like, the human-animal bond is profound, because it's constant.
Yeah.
and I would argue pure on the animal side. Like
innocent.
Dogs know nothing but like loving their people, and even the most amazing human to human relationships have complexity to it, have moments of hurt and pain and mistakes, and that's beautiful in its own right. But when it comes to the human animal bond, in my case with Coco, my dog, just nothing but a deep love. And someone used the phrase that I really connected with, like soul dog. Like she was just so formative for me and who I was and who I've become. She was a gift.
Yeah.
And it still hurts that she's not here,
Definitely. I mean, first of all, I apologize for how flippantly I threw us in this conversation. That probably wasn't very caring, I'm sorry. I know the pain of losing someone that means a lot to you and is really close to you.
Yeah.
And many people are more sad when a dog gets hurt than a human, because a dog is innocent, and a dog is I've never owned a dog. I've never lost a dog. I've lost cats. I've lost a brother. See, the way you described Coco was as your best friend.
Yeah.
And almost not partner in crime, but your partner. Like this thing by your side through everything, through so many experiences, so many years and ups and downs. And I think Coco was a stabilizing force for you too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you lose your stabilizing force and be okay? Because you seem okay day to day. And I'm years removed now from losing my brother. And also my brother wasn't with me every day. Didn't sleep in my bed next to me. Wasn't
right.
It's a very, you can't even really compare them because they're such a different relationship. But I'm trying to compare the dog to a human to acknowledge how meaningful a dog can be. It's not a lesser being in my mind. And what were the days like leading up to it and after? And how was your heart?
The days leading up to it were very, very painful. So she was diagnosed last year with lymphoma. Yeah. And I learned that there are thousands of different kinds of lymphoma and how it can manifest. Yeah. And hers was supposedly a small cell lymphoma, which is, it's cancerous and it's there. For her, it was kind of near her jaw around here. But it was small cell, so it's not a lot of people when their dogs get lymphoma, like they have weeks. Yeah. But her case, like dogs with small cell lymphoma, particularly her kind, it can be months, years, it's very slow progressing. And so the last few weeks leading up to her death were incredibly unexpected. If you had said 2 weeks to me, 2 weeks before she died, that she was dying, I would have said, you're crazy. Like, she was herself, her spunky self, totally fine. It was literally in the last couple weeks that she started going downhill and downhill really fast.
I can only imagine. In a weird way, I was spared from a piece of pain, which is my brother died. It was instant. It was unexpected, which is a different kind of grief. But I really am sad for you that you had to watch this friend of yours deteriorate. Yeah. And I hope, was she in pain?
We managed the pain pretty well. The last 24 hours, she was in a lot of pain, which is why we made the decision that we did. But but the pain management the last couple weeks leading up to it, we managed it pretty well, and she was not 100%, but she was fine. But her quality of life just went down and down and down.
Talk about a decision, man. I mean, I can't imagine letting go.
Yeah, that was really hard.
Yeah.
The human brain has an amazing ability to compartmentalize just to get through it.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously I was crying and going through a ton of pain in the process. But one, I have a really strong support system, and I was reaching out to that. I was utilizing that. My housemates were great. They were helping me and comforting me, my family. I'm really grateful to have strong relationships with my family members. So I was able to reach out to them.
How did other people help you?
Just by being there, just showing up. And like the day that Coco died, a mutual friend of ours, Kevin Brissette, he called me and he just showed up, and he was just there. I mean, that's what he does. He just shows up and is present in really beautiful ways. But my other friends did that too, in whatever ways they could offer. And I think, in any time of pain, you just have to reach out to the people you care about and be with them and be vulnerable. I mean, I think my training as a therapist makes me more aware of those needs. Like, I have certain skills that people have to go to therapy to develop. But I almost have some of those skills already. Like, I knew, okay, I got to reach out to my support system. I got to just be okay with crying this out. I got to make space to let this happen. A lot of people don't know that, but I had that knowledge, thankfully. And so, I still just let it out when it comes.
Does it feel good to cry?
It doesn't feel good, but it helps afterwards.
So after it's out, you feel better?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to cry. You got to cry to move through grief.
Does grieving feel... I remember when I moved to Hawaii the first time, I went to say goodbye to my stepmom, and I said goodbye and I left, and I'd forgotten something, and I also felt like I didn't leave it, and I felt like I hadn't acknowledged properly like how much she meant to me. So I went back and I gave her a hug, and I started crying, and that made me feel better because it felt like it really acknowledged how much she means to me.
Yes.
Like the tears were like almost a trophy of a real valuable, tangible thing to show how much this thing meant to me.
Did you feel that in the moment?
Yeah. I felt grateful that I was crying. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
this moment deserves that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a testament to how grief is different for everybody. Because, like, for me, when I cry, I'm still at a place where, like, afterwards, I can recognize, that, like, my crying is a testament to the deep, profound relationship that I had with Coco. But as I'm doing it, no, it's still just really, I don't have a cognitive ability in that moment to say, this is important. This is a testament to my relationship. No, when I'm crying because it sucks and I miss her a lot and I want her back. So, that's like, I get to that place eventually.
But these are tears of sadness and loss and misery.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, man.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go from here. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Well, thank you.
And I know that it almost rings hollow, like when people say that. It's like, it doesn't help anything. But I see the gears turning in your head and the misery on your face, and it's sad.
Grief is the most isolating human experience, while also the thing that every single person has to go through. like going through grief is always going to be a personal journey. It's going to be different for each person, but it's the thing that we all go through. It sucks in that way. Like, it's also great, but
is it? See, when you get a dog, you kind of sign up for that in a weird way. Like you jump into this friendship with a dog, knowing that you're going to outlive this beautiful little creature.
Yeah.
And, I mean, let's say you got another dog. I know that doesn't feel like right the way I said that, just to acknowledge it. There's a lot of reasons and all this stuff, but now you have a new dog. And part of what comes along with that is the understanding that the next one's going to die too, and someday.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating and interesting that we both can acknowledge how painful it is, but also willingly go into it.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I think, like, it's because we love that's the reason that we grieve. Like, if there's no grief, if there's no love, you know? And so I got to a place in my grief where I was ready to enter into that love space again.
Yeah.
If you choose to love someone, or in my case, love a dog, love anything, you're also going to choose to grieve that thing when loss happens. That's the way of life.
Yeah.
And so, I got to a place where I wanted to engage in that love again and start building something different. And like, there are days, someone used the phrase soul dog to me the other day. I can't remember which friend used that, but it really resonated with me. I think Coco was a soul dog for me. Like, she was just there for me in the most formative times of my life. And we had this connection. She was an easy dog, like really just an angel. And I called her my angel. And so, like, as I'm with this new dog, it's been an interesting experience starting to form a bond, but it doesn't feel the same, you know, and I don't think it ever will.
No.
But like, it's unrealistic for me to think that I'll have the connection I had with Coco with another dog. Yeah. It's just going to be different.
So I came over, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month ago, something like that. And, I didn't get the sense that you got April, your new dog.
Maple.
Maple.
Yeah.
I didn't get the sense you got Maple to replace Coco.
No.
I got the sense that, hey, you felt willing to love again, and an opportunity, I think earlier than you were expecting, arise,
Yes.
and you were like, hey, it's screw it, I guess I got to jump at this opportunity.
It was very unexpected.
And so I guess I didn't get the sense that you were filling a void or like trying to replace Coco, which I think is healthy. Yeah. And I think they are different. They're different, and it's okay. And I think you can build a different relationship and different friendship with Maple than you had with Coco, and acknowledge that. And I hope when you look back on your life in 40 years, you're like, man, I still remember Coco. It was still so meaningful.
Oh, I always will.
Yeah. And I'm struggling to find words here. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking right now? How are you feeling?
I'm thinking of something my therapist told me about how grief is not something we move past, but it almost like it's something we get used to. Like, it's always gonna be part of me. Yeah. I don't think I'm ever gonna stop crying about Coco, but the like intensity of it is decreasing with time.
Yeah.
I think it's always gonna be an ache.
Yeah.
but I think that it is getting easier as time goes on.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
So if anyone listening doesn't know, my brother killed himself. And so I still have grief regularly, and I'm definitely way better than I was. And Friday, yesterday, one of our guys didn't come into work. And it's like, we get there all at 7, and it's like 8:00, and Josh still isn't there, and we can't reach him. And my brain immediately goes, "Would Josh kill himself?" Like I'm like, I don't know, and I can't really ask. It's like, so you're not really allowed to say that or ask
Right.
that. But my brain immediately goes, "I hope he didn't kill himself."
Yeah.
And I know that's probably not what everyone else was thinking. He slept in and it was fine. But I'll probably always have that response. I'll probably always, whenever I can't reach someone, and it won't be maybe very intense, but it's always like, one of the possibilities here is that happened, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And so I say all that to say it doesn't ever quite go away.
Right.
And I don't know that it should. I don't know what that means, should.
Yeah.
But I know for me, like, I'm always going to miss him. I'm always going to think about him. There's always going to be meaningful moments that remind me of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always going to hurt.
Yeah.
And I would assume it's the same with Coco.
Yeah. I think it's always going to hurt. Yeah, because, I think we miss those people, and we miss their presence.
Yeah.
And
are you okay talking more about this? Like, do you want to talk about something
else?
else?
No, this is fine. I'll let you know if there's something that is hitting in a way that I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that we normalize talking about grief, because this is something that we all go through, and like, we need support around that. I think we need to talk about it more and recognize that it's a hard experience, and it's okay for it to be hard, and it's okay to seek help. If you don't have people in your community to talk to, get someone to talk to about loss, because it's important.
So I don't know why I want to ask this question, and I worry about the consequences of this question.
Okay. Great way to preface that, Zach.
Yeah. But I do want to ask it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you miss about Coco?
I miss her smile. I miss the way she would greet me when I showed up. I miss the way that she made other people feel. Like, Coco was the kind of dog that, just with the combination of her smile and her temperament towards other people, like, people just really enjoyed being around her, which made social situations great for me. Like, if I could bring Coco somewhere, like, she would make things easier. I miss the way she played. It's interesting having a puppy now. I got Coco when she was 7 months, which is still a puppy, but much, much older. And Coco was like a really aggressive player. Like, playing with toys, like, that was one of her quirks. She would go after them. She was a really aggressive chewer. She wanted to chase after things, and I really miss that. The dog that I have now, she's much more gentle, a little more on the anxious side, a little bit more hesitant, and so I do miss the playfulness. And, like, when I was playing with Coco, I knew she was enjoying it. And I miss that a lot. So,
a special dog.
Yeah, very, very special dog.
Is Coco the first like person or creature you've lost that was close to you?
in my adult life, yes. I also, like, recently around the same time Coco died, a college friend of mine died. So it's happening more often as I get older because that's the course life takes.
Yeah.
But I will say this is like in my adult life. Yeah. Cause like I lost my grandma, who was a really significant formative person in my life. But it hit differently when she died. For some reason, I think I was just much younger and I felt grief a bit differently then. Maybe now it also has to do with the fact that like growing up when people died, it was always like they're going to be like, I'm going to see them again in heaven. You know, that was what I believed as a kid. And I think that helps a lot of people in their grief journey. I'm going to see them again. But now that I'm in this place of, like, I'm hopeful that that's the case, but like, I don't know if that is. So I am like really taking seriously, this person is gone now. You know,
It makes it hurt way more.
Yeah. They're gone.
Yeah.
And even if there is an afterlife, the person I knew in this life, you know, like the people, like family members and stuff would often be like, oh, you're going to see her again. And I do appreciate that. That comes from a place, I'm at a place in my life where I know that comes from a place of care and comfort. People are trying to help you. And so I'm not bitter when people say that to me. But internally, I'm like, yeah, but they're not here anymore. Even if there is an afterlife and I am going to see them again, I'm hopeful that that's the case. But like, this life as I know it and experience it, I don't get Coco anymore.
It's a great sense of loss there.
Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah. Do you, you've been through a tremendous process, a grieving process.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask about dogs specifically, but I think we can broaden it just generally to losing somebody. Has there been a part of this process that, has there been things you've learned or things that you could impart to other people that might help make them, I don't know if make it easier, but help, is there anything that you've learned or done in this process that's helped you that you think can help other people?
I think that grief is something we're all going to go through. And if you're going through it now, the first thing you got to do is just recognize that it's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's important to feel what you're feeling. And your journey is going to look very different from someone else's. So, like, I'll say what was helpful for me. I reached out to as many people as I could, and I just I spent money on, I commissioned someone to do a painting because I knew that was going to be really important to me, and it felt right. You just, when you're going through grief, you have to do things. So those were helpful for me. But that may not be your story. You may not have close family and friends you can reach out to. That may not be part of your story, and that's okay. Just listen to your gut. Listen to your gut and what feels right, what you need, and just trust your gut.
When Coco died, did you feel alone?
No, because in the last 24 hours that I had with Coco, I knew it was the last 24 hours. My family came over to my house and we all spent time with her together. And my mom offered to go with me, so I wasn't alone. Yeah. So no, I did not feel alone. I felt alone when I took her to the beach for the last time the week before. When I knew she was going downhill, the beach was kind of her favorite place.
Yeah.
And so I took her there knowing she was going downhill. And I felt alone on the drive back because we were there for like 30 minutes because I knew she gave me this look like I don't have the energy to be here. And so that felt really alone. But when she died, no, I felt very blessed to just have people around me, which I know not everyone gets that. So I'm really glad that I did.
Would you have felt alone without all the support around you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, would you have felt left behind maybe?
Oh, in grief, I definitely felt left behind.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm learning is that's one of the things grief does.
Yeah.
Like the world moves on, the world keeps moving, but your world has stopped for a bit. And it took a while before I started feeling like I was moving again.
Yeah. It's I want to be careful with my words. Because there's a topic here that I think is interesting that let me just say it. If I say it the wrong way and I offend you or offend anyone listening, that's not at all my heart. Like there's a little part of me that's kind of jealous. Like you got a really cool experience almost. I don't know if cool is not the right word. That's why I say I'm being careful with my words because none of this was fun. Let's be clear. But one day I got a phone call, Zane's dead, it's over. Yeah. I would have killed to like have a warning. Like, we're like, one more day. And like in a weird, see, it's not, it's like almost horrific. You did get a day.
I did.
To like have, to say goodbye and to grieve and to like.
Literally, I was given a day. Like I had the conversation with the vet and she said, we can give her these meds. It'll take some of the pain away and it'll give you 48 hours. I got 48 hours that I knew that was what I had.
So what do you do? You get told you have 48 hours. Then what? Do you make a plan? Do you?
Yeah, see, that's the interesting thing. Like people started telling me, oh, that's great. You have this opportunity to like create the perfect day for her. But we spent the last 24 to 48 hours. I was just on this couch with her. Yeah. Because she didn't have a lot of energy.
Could she walk?
Yeah. I mean, I started to have to, I eventually had to start picking her up to take her places, in the last 12 to 24 hours, as the pain meds started to wear off.
I remember like a Facebook post or something where it was like Coco's last walk, or did something like that happen?
Yes. Yeah. I posted about the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my way of documenting the grief of like, I had to get those words out and I felt like sharing it with people because more people need to know about grief and especially around pet loss because not everyone knows the pain of that. And so I wanted to share some of my journey because it felt right to me.
Do you feel a need to justify why you shared all that?
Sometimes, because it was, I do sometimes feel the need to justify that because I don't like sharing every aspect of my life, especially like some of the more painful stuff on social media. I don't think sometimes it can be a great place for that, but for me personally, I want my primary support system to be like my support people. I don't want to be sharing the nitty gritty of my entire life on social media. So there was part of me that's like, should I be sharing this grief journey so publicly? However, it became something like people resonated with it. I got a lot of engagement around it, not just condolences, but people like messaging me saying I'm really resonating with the things you're sharing, like more than I'd gotten from my bread stuff. Like people were just it struck a chord with people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do feel the need to justify it because I don't like sharing the nitty gritty of my life on social media.
Yeah.
It is a curated platform, even if we don't like to admit it.
Yeah.
It's a very curated platform. So, but yeah, I did choose to do that.
I liked that you shared. I thought, how do I even say this? It was cool to, in a weird way, see the journey and the process. And I would not have known so much about, like, I know what you went through partially because you shared that. And I think there is value in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't tell your story, no one's going to know.
Yeah.
And knowing your story helped me understand you better and get to know you better. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people saw it and felt understood or felt a sense of kinship. Like, oh, I've lost a dog too. I've lost somebody. And it was really, I understand the discomfort. Like, and I always have fear of oversharing. I probably definitely overshare in my life. But there is also, it's really cool to tell a story. Mm-hmm. And you definitely told a story.
Yeah.
Like I remember vividly, like the next day after Coco died, after Coco was put down. Is that?
Yeah, we euthanized her. I took her to the vet, and she died in a room with me, my mom, and the vet. Mm. She died in my arms, actually. Like the vet offered that opportunity to me, said, a lot of people like to leave, and I was like, no, she needs to be with me.
Yeah. I remember we lost a cat once and had put her down, and I had a similar. I've been in a room as a pet you really deeply love gets euthanized, and it's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
literally feel the life go away.
Yeah.
Which is very heavy.
Would you say that was a caring thing to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was not. It became very clear that she was not living her best life anymore.
Yeah. And not even her best life. Like the quality of life was
degrading.
The
quality
so
of life was not there.
Yeah.
And unlike human beings, animals can't tell us that they're ready to go. They can give you looks. I felt like I got looks from Coco where she was like, I'm ready to go. Saying that brought some emotions, but yeah, we have to make that decision for the animals in our care.
Do you ever think about your own death? Like, I what I mean by that is I think about my death a lot. And I don't think I want to try to go as long as I possibly can. I think when my body breaks down and I can't do the activities I like to do, and I can't see, and I can't really drive, and I don't have freedom anymore, like I think I'm probably going to kill myself when I'm 70 or 80 or something like that. I'll put it in my own hands, and I'll take 2-minute sleeping pills or something. And and I actually, it gives me a lot of peace because I really don't want to have a shitty, low quality life. That I don't know what that looks like exactly, but there will be a point in my life where I can't walk, and I can't think or solve problems or write I'm going to push it probably as far as I can. I mean, I imagine a day where I can't walk and I can't see very well, but I can still write, and I enjoy writing. And that'll get me. I'll find an angle to have a quality of life. But the minute I can't, I'm very comfortable with just letting myself go.
Yeah.
Do you think about any of that?
I don't know if I do, actually. It's one thing to think about. It's one thing to think about it, but also it's so vague, right? Similar to like how I thought about death before Coco died. It was all like, yes, I had lost grandparents and people who were really close to me, but it hadn't really sunk in until Coco died, and then all of a sudden, death was death. And I think it's going to be the same for for me dying. Like it's something I could think about, but I can't really grasp it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we could talk about it and think about it. I also don't want to be someone who's trying to prolong it just for prolonging life.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm still enjoying and having a good quality of life. And yeah. So no, I don't think I've thought about it a lot. It's just way too, it doesn't feel close. Maybe that's because I'm still a bit younger, but like,
Have you ever?
obvi- yeah.
Have you ever seen the Anthony Bourdain documentary called Roadrunner?
Not yet.
His people close to him made a documentary about him and his life and kind of his death. And I think David Choi, something like that.
Uh-huh.
The artist.
Yeah.
At the end, it is a spoiler if you care. I don't think anyone is gonna be like, you spoiled the Anthony Bourdain documentary. That's not what I mean, but he's like, he would hate this. Us all sitting around crying and like fucking sad. He's like,
Yeah.
let's go do something fun.
Right.
Like, that would honor Anthony. That's what he would want.
Yeah.
And he goes on like, I think like graffiti is like a bunch of walls. Like he like or makes like a mural or does something like fun and like gets out there and like honors him truly.
Yeah.
When I die, I don't want people to be sad. I mean, they'll be sad and miss me, sure, but like, I'd like to go on my own terms and in a way that people can feel good about.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely focused more on the like enjoying life part than thinking about my death.
Good.
I mean, I'm also in a sad place because the loss of Coco is still very raw and close.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think I'm still in a more low mood than I typically would be. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, I am focused on just enjoying life.
Is there anything more you want to say about Coco?
I don't think so. I think if you were to follow me on social media or go check out my Instagram, you would get to know who Coco was and what she meant to me. You would see her smile, and you'd get to know her a little bit. But I don't think there's anything else that I have to share.
She was a damn good dog.
The best, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Let's end here. I've got a thing I think we could end with. What do you look forward to?
Oh man, I look forward to just continuing to learn and to explore this world that we live in. It's just so crazy to me that we have the opportunity to be here and experience the beauty of it. And I look forward to many more opportunities to explore it and learn about the things that this world has to offer us. And yeah, I look forward to nourishing people with like my bread and my creations. Yeah, when I really narrow it down, I have 3 life values that this period of life has really clarified for me. I look forward to living a curious life. I look forward to living an adventurous life, and I look forward to living a nourishing life where I get to also nourish others, and whether that's emotionally or through my bread physically,
Yeah.
Those
Can you
are
define that even further, like nourishing? Because you don't mean food necessarily. You do, but also...
Yeah, nourishment, like things that give life to us, whether it's the literal nutrients that we need to survive, but also life-giving experiences, like the process of sharing bread with someone is a unifying factor that has united us for our entire history of human civilization. We always eat with each other. And I look forward to more opportunities to do that, to break bread with people and share people's stories and life experiences.
Dude, I love you, man. I really,
Yeah,
I just,
I love you too.
I think so highly of you, and I really admire how like much you shared your heart today. I mean,
Thank you.
Dude, it's an interesting position to be in, asking the questions, knowing that they're kind of hard to answer and kind of painful even to delve into.
Yeah.
And I definitely wasn't loving making you feel pain. Like it was, and watching you tear up is hard because I do really care about you, and I know how painful, especially loss. There's a lot of painful stuff we talked about today.
Yeah.
But the Coco loss was really difficult.
Yeah.
And I just, right on, man, for like being open about all that shit.
Yeah. And I can tell you that you don't have to feel bad about that. I am at the place that I am because I have faced those feelings. Mm-hmm. And so I'm comfortable being there because it's just part of life. And like because I have taken so much care of myself, which I'm really proud of. Like I've done the hard work of grieving. Like I'm okay letting the tears out and showing that to other people because like I've done the work. I've worked really hard to process those.
I admire you, man. You've got a tremendous amount of emotional maturity and wisdom that I want to be around as much as I can. I mean, I like, please call me in a month. Like, I really just, you're awesome. You're good people.
Yeah.
And I just, you got a friend of life for me. So
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
The feeling is mutual.